Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Well, in today's episode, I want to have a look at the ongoing strategy that Abiy Ahmed, the tyrannical dictator of the former state of Ethiopia, and the head of the Addis Ababa city-state. Yes, the Addis Ababa city-state. Now, what is Abiy Ahmed's strategy? Now, look, if we go back to 2021, and we look at the strategy, the military strategy of Abiy Ahmed, specifically in his invasion of the Tigray region, where he ultimately was able to, at least for a short period of time, militarily take control of the capital of the Tigray region, Mekelle. Now, how did he do that? Well, he did it with overwhelming force, tens of thousands of troops, and at the same time, for reasons that we didn't really understand, the TDF, the Tigrayan Defense Forces, did not make a military stand in Mekelle. The Tigrayan Defense Forces dispersed. They did not fortify Mekelle. There was not a battle for Mekelle. Now, there eventually was a battle for Mekelle, and that took place in early June 2021. This operation was called Operation Alula, after a 19th century Tigrayan general. This operation was able to surround multiple Abiy loyalist divisions within the vicinity of Mekelle, block the A2 highway north into Mekelle, envelop the Ethiopian Defense Force divisions, the Abiy loyalist forces, multiple divisions, and then destroy them in zone. As many as 8,000 to 10,000 Abiy loyalist troops were taken prisoner in that operation. Now, who was the general in charge of Operation Alula? It was launched by this individual by the name of General Sadakan. Arguably the best tactical and strategic mind in all of the former Ethiopia. And I would say that most people would not even argue around that fact. It was an incredible operation. A classic operation to cut off your enemy, eliminate the ability of that core-sized element to receive supplies, and then launch attacks to degrade and destroy eventually that entire core. Multiple Ethiopian Defense Force divisions were rendered combat ineffective, which then led to an eventual Tigrayan Defense Force counteroffensive deep inside Ethiopia proper, leaving the Tigray region and threatening the Abiy loyalist capital at one point. Now, again, we're looking at the current strategy. Obviously, overwhelming military force initially looked like it may work for Abiy Ahmed, and then Operation Alula happens, and not so much. Not so much. Not until Abiy Ahmed is able to acquire some certain intelligence and, more importantly, drones with precision-guided munitions. That was able to kind of stabilize things to some extent for Abiy Ahmed, and access to monolithic amounts of currency, acceptable currency, tangible money. Okay? That's how he won. Or created the Pretoria Agreement, especially the Pretoria Agreement. The Pretoria Agreement, in terms of how this temporary ceasefire occurred, was caused because Abiy Ahmed had massive access to funding. Now, let's ask this question. When we're looking at Abiy Ahmed's strategy, right, his current strategy, we have to ask ourselves, hey, where is, if things are starting to heat up, right, you would think that the Tigrayan Defense Forces would want one of their best generals in Mekelle preparing for possible offensive or defensive action. Where is General Sadr Khan? My understanding is he is in the Abiy loyalist capital of Addis Ababa. Now look, I believe he's about 70 years old. So he is not a spring chicken. He is an elderly man, right, who has, in some cases, lived a very challenging and difficult life in the field of the battlefields of northern Ethiopia. But right now, there has been some friction between him and the political leadership of the Tigray region. And right now, to my understanding, I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm incorrect on this. My understanding is he currently resides in Addis Ababa, if not possibly someplace in the United States. Now, why is he there? And do you believe that it is the strategy of Abiy Ahmed to see that happen? Why would you not want to, if you could, not necessarily eliminate your enemy's best general, right? Not by military means, not by drone strike, but by, hey, we have a stable electric grid almost 100% of the time. Here's a villa with a heated pool, right? Access to a relatively stable banking system. And more importantly, what Abiy Ahmed has done is it is the only access to the former state of Ethiopia, and that's the main airport at Addis Ababa. I believe there's also a way to get into Ethiopia through Dire Dawa over here. But by and large, most of the flights, if you're going to come into the country, right, through air travel, is going to be through Addis. And then from Addis, there's certain limited connecting flights up to Mekelle. But if you're going to fly in, if you're going to go to the Tigray region, you just can't take a plane to Mekelle. It doesn't work like that, right? You are filtered through Addis. And who controls Addis Ababa? Obviously Abiy Ahmed. And Addis Ababa gives him that capability, him, Abiy Ahmed, that capability of not just the ability to control individuals in Addis, but the ability to offer a fairly stable, somewhat safe, and at times somewhat luxurious existence. Right? Look, if you go up to Mekelle, in all likelihood, just basic power, just basic electricity is going to, at the best case scenario, is going to be intermittent. The entire electrical grid of Tigray was essentially destroyed during the war. Prior to the conflict, about 50% of the entire Tigray region had access to electricity, right? After the war, that whole dynamic has even changed further. So again, Abiy Ahmed is able to offer that. And not only that, he's able to offer, hey, look, you can live here in safety and peace in Addis, and you can jump on a plane and go to the United States. You can go visit your family who may be in school in the United States or living inside the United States. You may have a home in the United States. And that sort of offering, right, having the ability to do that is incredibly advantageous to Abiy Ahmed. That is a potent weapon. To have that ability to offer comfort and safety and a portal, a controlled portal, out of the country. Look, if you're in good standing with Abiy Ahmed, you can leave the country. You can leave the country. So if we look at the strategy of Abiy Ahmed, as we look at this evolving conflict, I don't necessarily believe that it is an overt military strategy where we would see multiple Abiy loyalist divisions moving north into the Tigray region, or even we've heard about the possibility that Abiy Ahmed is looking at certain ports in Eritrea, right? Is that going to be a military solution? Is that a military solution? Or is it a wait-and-see economic solution? Is it economic war supported by elements of a military solution? What do I mean by that? Well, look, you can take the bullet or the silver, right? You can take my money or you can take my bullet. What would you prefer? The drone has become that bullet, right? Hey, support me, or at least don't interfere, and you can have a comfortable life. If not, well, there's going to be a Mammal missile with you and your family's name on it. That is the strategy of Abiy Ahmed right now. I don't believe it's going to be, again, a military solution. Not economically viable, right? He is able to focus his access to currency and treasure to individuals and to remove those individuals from the equation. Now look, was General Sadiq Khan purposely removed by Abiy Ahmed, or was there other circumstances that led to that? We don't really know. I haven't been able to interview General Sadiq Khan. Would like to, haven't been able to. But having that capability And that's the capability that we're seeing right now in terms of what is in Abiy Ahmed's playbook. So what's the answer, right? What is the answer that the Tigrayan Defense Forces and the TPLF, how do they respond to that, right? Well, either A, a very aggressive military operation to that in which the Tigrayan Defense Forces are able to rapidly move on to Addis Ababa and take control of the city and drive Abiy Ahmed out of the country, or an asymmetrical type of conflict, right? Those are essentially the two options right now. I don't believe there's a political option at all. Not going to happen. And the asymmetrical option, industrial strength insurgency, acquiring alliances in the Amhara and the Oromo region, it could work, but it's going to take a significant amount of time. And the technology and the money, again, is going to be on the side of Abiy Ahmed. So that leads to the first, which is this rapid use of very aggressive military capability to seize control of the capital. Now, does the TDF have that capability? We just don't know right now. We don't know. But I think as this continues to play out, right? I think it's possible. That we see some sort of aggressive military operation by the TDF and quite possibly Eritrea as well, right? I think Afwerki is if he's still mentally there, he's looking at who is going to replace him. What does that look like? And then obviously Abiy Ahmed's intelligence agencies are looking at that as well. So the end game doesn't look good. I mean, all roads point to some sort of conflict, right? And I don't think or believe it is viable for the population of Tigray to continue to live the way they're living. So something is going to give. Now, when that happens, it's difficult to say. But I can tell you that I don't believe Ethiopia as a nation state, okay, as this multi-ethnic nation state, is set up for future-facing success. I think it's going to have to be a very loose, at best, federation of fully autonomous nation states, at best, if not completely autonomous. Just too many intra-ethnic and inter-ethnic rivalries that exist. That's my take on it, anyway. Well, look, as always, thank you for joining us. More to come, and feel free to comment in the comment section. Have a good day.